So we've spent a lot of IS December talking about broad, sweeping sections of the ship, but there are a few key little elements around the ship that I want to discuss specifically, most notably some of those elements that changed in between the ISD-1 and the ISD-2. So today I want to focus specifically on some of the elements of the bridge tower, most notably the communications tower in between the two shield globes. I'm Colin, this is IS December, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So, the tower in between the two shield globes is the easiest way to distinguish an Imperial 1 from an Imperial 2 class Star Destroyer. It's the most visually distinctive difference between the two classes of vessel, and it's honestly the first place I look when trying to figure out which class a ship is, which is, by the way, the reason I was initially mistaken, thinking that they had converted the Chimera to an ISD-2 when it appeared in Ahsoka, when in reality its tractor beam tower was simply broken. But that's beside the point. Today, let's talk about what that tower is, what it does, and what changed on that tower in between the ISD-1 and the ISD-2. So to understand what that tower does, we have to first take a look at where it's positioned. It's at the highest point on the vessel. The only thing that's taller than it on the ISD-2 are the shield globes, and on the ISD-1 it was the tallest element of the vessel, towering over the rest of the structure. So what purpose does that serve? Well, let's start with what it was on the ISD-1. On the Imperial 1 class Star Destroyer, it was the tractor beam targeting array. It was used to designate targets for the tractor beam. It worked in conjunction with a pair of other targeting systems around the vessel, allowing it to target ships below the vessel, for example, in that tower's blind spot. But for the most part, it was primarily designated to utilize the ship's tractor beams. And that comes from one of the sort of main design elements present in the ISD-1. It's really almost built to police things, and being able to capture things with a tractor beam or seize things with an ion cannon blast is much more useful than a massive array of turbo lasers. So that big X-shaped structure was intended to increase the range that those tractor beams could be targeted at. And the end result of that was that it was able to lock on and track multiple targets and engage multiple targets with its tractor beams, which is a very impressive capability for a vessel. But that was removed for the ISD-2. Now, there's a lot of debate as to the logic behind some of the decisions made with the transition from the Imperial 1 to the Imperial 2 class Star Destroyer. A lot of it seems kind of nonsensical. But one of the ones that stuck out to me the most was the transition from the tractor beam targeting array up here at the top to this sleeker and shorter communications array. This effectively weakened the ship's tractor beams, limiting the range they could be used and reducing the number of targets that could be targeted at once. Which seems like a mistake when you're fighting the Rebel Alliance that really favors hit-and-run tactics, light starfighter combat, and ultimately a form of warfare that is best countered by capturing your enemy at every instance that you can and keeping them from escaping, something that a tractor beam is a very effective tool at doing. But on the Imperial 2, that tractor beam targeting array was removed and replaced with a communications tower. This improved the communications and sensor range of the vessel and allowed it to detect targets further out for its more conventional loadout. After all, the ISD-2 also replaced several of the ship's ion cannons with heavy turbo lasers, clearly marking a shift from a sort of neutralize and board target mentality to a simply blow up the target mentality. And that is actually reflected in this transition from a tractor beam targeting array to a communications array that would once again help the ship engage and detect targets at a longer range and communicate with other vessels in the area to be able to coordinate attacks on targets. Now, there's actually a conversion that occurred in a lot of Imperial 1 class Star Destroyers, which saw them being converted from an Imperial 1 to sort of an Imperial 2 light, where a lot of the elements of the Imperial 2 were added, but some of the core elements of the ISD-1 remained. And on most of those transitions, one of the first things that was removed was the tractor beam targeting array, which was replaced with the communications tower. Now, ultimately, that's just an excuse to claim that some of the Star Destroyers present in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi were present in A New Hope, but in universe, we have to ask why that was their first target, which comes back to why the tractor beams and the ion cannons were deprioritized in favor of more direct engagement weapons. Ultimately, the communications array on the top of the ISD-2 would become the standard for the ISD-2 and the Imperial 1s that were converted to Imperial 2s. If you'd like to learn more about other elements of this massive vessel, I'll leave a link up here to a playlist I've put together all about the Imperial-class Star Destroyer and the anatomy of this massive ship. And like I said, that's one of the biggest differences between the ISD-1 and the ISD-2, so I'd like to know your thoughts. Which do you think is more useful from a tactical standpoint, the tractor beam targeting array or the communications array? And which do you think looks better aesthetically? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars or anywhere else in science fiction, you can let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon to get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.